Dear students, in the previous class we discussed about animal tissues, and the first type of animal tissue, epithelial tissue, is over. Now we are going to discuss about another important tissue, that is connective tissue. The second type of tissue is connective tissue. In its name only is there connection, which makes the connection, which bring together, which connect together. Okay, so connection, a loosely spaced tissue embedded in the intercellular matrix, and which makes the connections, it's called connective tissue. So that is about connective tissue, loosely spaced tissue. Okay, and makes the connections. The main importance is transport the materials, that is about connective tissue. For this I will explain something about this tissue and its importance. If you tilt your hand like this, if you tilt your any part of your body, is there any displacement in the bones? Or if you tilt any part of your body, is there any displacement in the internal organs? There is no displacement in the internal organs because of this connective tissue. The connective tissue is very useful to make the organs or to keep the organs in a particular place. That is connective tissue. Because of the connective tissue only, the internal organs are situated in the particular places and perform their functions. Do you understand? So, the loosely spaced tissue mainly useful for the transport of substances and embedded in intercellular matrix and makes the connections. That is connective tissue. So, connective tissue is a very useful tissue. It is binding tissue. What is that? The main function of this is binding. Binding means put together. Bind, to come together, put together. So connective tissue is useful for binding of tissues and organs together. What are those? Tissues and organs together. Okay, it makes the connections between tissues and organs and helps in keep the organs in the places. And helps in keep the organs in its places. So the main important of this one, it makes the connections, bindings between the tissues and organs. It helps in keep the organs in the particular places. It is also useful in transport of materials from one tissue to another tissue. So another important function is transport. Okay, now. So it also involves in the transport of materials from one tissue to another tissue and makes the connections between the different tissues. Okay, it connects the muscles to bones, bones to muscles and skin. All these are performed by this connective tissue. On the basis of their location and functions, connective tissue also divided into several types. The first one is areolar tissue. What is that? Areolar tissue. Areolar tissue is a type of connective tissue which makes the connections between the different tissues. It also helps in keep the organs in the same place. Same thing about the connective tissue. Subconnective tissue also explain about the main connective tissue. Okay, it makes the connections between the several tissues and helps in keep the organs in a specific place. These are the major components of the connective tissue. These are the major components of the connective tissue. These cells are also called as fibroblasts. What are those? Fibroblasts. These cells are also known as fibroblasts because these kind of areolar tissue secretes a fibrous material. Fiber means fiber. Okay, now. So, fibrous material which makes the connections among the different organs. The connective tissue also helps in this aerial tissue also helps in or it involves in the body defense. Body defense, body repair. Okay, now body defense and body repair. So whenever the tissues has broken or tissues are torn, the areolar connective tissue helps in the repairing of these. Okay, now torn tissues or teared tissues. This is about areolar tissue. Okay, connective tissue which makes the connections among the different types of tissues and organs. It is very useful to keep the organs in a specific place. It is useful for transport of materials. The connective tissue helps in the body defense, body repair, and storage of fat. Storage of fat. So the sub one on the basis of their functions and locations, it has divided into types. Areolar tissue. Areolar tissue is the major component of the connective tissue. These cells are also called fibroblasts. These fibroblasts involves in the body repair. Whenever the body gets torn or it has broken, the tissues are broken, they involves in the repair. Okay. And main thing performed by these muscles, tissues is it connects the muscles to the bones and bones to the muscles. Do you understand? Which connects the muscle to skin and bone to muscle. These are main important. Another type of connective tissue is adipose tissue. Dear students, think one thing. Think about it. World people are shivering during the winter. World people are shivering during the winter when compared with the youngsters. What is the reason behind it? Is there any insulator-like substance or insulatory sheath that present in the youngsters to prevent from the cold, escaping cold? Yes. Yes, there is a adipose tissue. Okay. The connective tissue, it is also a connective tissue. But adipose tissue is present under the skin and between the internal organs. Okay, adipose tissue is present under the skin, below the skin, and adipose tissue is present under the skin and in between the internal organs. This tissue contains fat globule-like structures. Fat globule-like structures, because of it known as adipose tissue, which acts as an insulatory sheath to protect the loss of heat from the body. Because of that, the youngsters feel very hot than the older ones during the winter seasons. The youngsters can tolerate the cold, chillness or coldness when compared with the elder ones. That is adipose tissue. Adipose tissue is the fat tissue. It is present under the skin and in between the internal organs. It acts as an insulatory sheath to prevent from the loss of heat from the body. Like a sweater, it works in our body. Okay. So another one is bone is also a type of connective tissue. Bone is also a type of connective tissue which makes the framework for the movement of the body. Okay, now. So bone is the main part of the skeletal system. Bone is also a type of connective tissue which makes the framework, which gives the framework and is important for the whole skeletal system. The bone is made up of two types of salts, calcium carbonate and calcium phosphate. Okay, now. So the bone is made up of the calcium carbonate and calcium phosphate salts. These salts are secreted from the hollow portion of the bone. Hollow portion of the bone. What is that one? Bone marrow. Bone marrow. Okay? The salts are secreted from the bone marrow, hollow portion of the bone called bone marrow. Now we are going to discuss another type of connective tissue, that is ligament. Bone, see, D, ligaments. So I need cartilage, first cartilage is there. Cartilage. Cartilage is a type of connective bone. It is a bone but not as hard as like the remaining bones. It is a smooth bone, cartilage. Do you know cartilage? It is a type of connective bone but it is a smooth bone. Okay, now it is not as hard as like the remaining bones. For example, the cartilage is present in the external ears, tip of the nose and trachea. Okay, now at the kidney tubules it is present. Okay, now at the ribs, at the tip of the ribs, at the joints, tip of the ribs, tip of the nose, external ears, trachea, it is present. Okay, so this is smooth bone. This is smooth bone. It is not as hard as like the other remaining bones. This is a cartilage. So several vertebrates do not have the bones during the embryonic time. Instead of that, they have the cartilage. Cartilage, bones. Okay, do you understand? Several vertebrates do not have the bones, hard bones at the time of embryonic development. They have the cartilaginous bones. Okay, the fishes, some of the fishes, for example, shark, the entire skeletal system is made up of cartilage. Shark's skeletal system is made up of cartilage. And next one is ligaments. Ligaments. Ligaments also a type of connective tissues. These are present at the joints where the bones are joined together because of the ligaments. Okay, so different types of joints is there. Here elbow, knees, pelvic girdle, shoulder girdle, different types of girdles. So at that ligaments are there, they are useful for the making of connections between the different types of bones. And they secrete a fibrous material which holds the bones together. The protein, okay now, a protein type material, okay, that holds the bones together. That is ligament. And next one is, so the protein material here, ligament, secretes the fibrous protein material, that is collagen. Collagen. Next one is tendon. Tendon is a type of connective bone. Tendon is a type of connective bone which makes the connection between muscle to bone. Tendon, muscle to bone. Ligament makes the connection between bone to bone. This makes the connection between bone to muscle, muscle to bone. This is about connective tissue. Loosely spaced tissue, useful for the mainly transport of substances and embedded intracellular matrix, which makes the connections, connective tissue. So types of connective tissue, it will mainly help for binding and tissues and organs, and keep the organs in its places, and mainly transport of materials that are manufactured from one tissue to the another tissue where it is required. So, areolar tissue is the first one subtype. It is useful for the keeping of organs in a particular place. It is the major component of the connective tissue, which secretes the fibrous material. Because of that fibrous material, fibroblast, it is known as fibroblast. Fibrous material which holds the muscles to bone, muscles to skin, bone to muscle. Okay, adipose tissue is a fat storage tissue. And bone is a type of connective tissue. It is made up of calcium carbonate, calcium phosphate. The salts are manufactured from the bone marrow. So ligament, cartilage, smooth bone, ligament which holds the bones at the joints, tendon, bone to muscle. So these are the types of connective tissue. Dear students, in the next class we will discuss about the remaining two tissues, that is muscular tissue and nervous tissue. Okay, thank you.